Welcome to week three. Gonna focus this in on the role of large scale testing this week. And so there's this week is probably going to feel like there's the kind of the most to do. We'll talk about why, but I also think it will be the most meaningful. Last week we got to look at the classroom data and kind of that smaller scale, and so you're going to now apply that at a larger setting. And so hopefully it will make sense to as to why I kind of reordered the school-wide and classroom data for you. So this week you're really thinking about within a state test, looking across the reporting categories. And so some of the videos that you'll be viewing and some of the activities will give you time to explore that. You're going to want to be thinking about assessment strategies, both short term, midterm, and long term. And so there's a part, I think it's part three, is set up to provide some options to think about that's not always standardized. We're going to want to be thinking then the many types of assessments that would be appropriate for the goals that you pick for your school, for your classrooms to measure student learning before the state test. So we're going to want to be thinking about the use of technology in student assessment measures. And so things like Socrative or Kahoot, or the way we use Excel, Google Sheets to be able to really look at that data is going to be important that you continue to do that. Again, measuring learning in more than one way, especially when you're looking at the curriculum progress. You're going to want to think about the standards and the assessment anchors. And so there's an activity this week that's really going to focus you in on looking at performance descriptors at each level that students are supposed to meet. And then when you're looking at your data, really thinking about what reporting categories and what's the eligible content for those. You're going to want to continue to apply your understanding of the statistics, but now we're really just using them, right? And to help us interpret. In these last two, we're thinking about coaching and taking the data and now how do we work with the adults in the room to be able to get them to make decisions around data at the school level and then follow through with that at the classroom level. This is just your pre-assessment data. So you'll see, most of you are, kind of in the middle with your using and looking at Keystone or PSSA data, and then, really, connecting that to instruction and programming. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity, especially working with the data, to be able to grow in this area. And of course, our essential questions, right? So how can we use the state assessment to inform teaching? It's actually not all negative if that's the view that you have or you've heard from others. It can actually be helpful. Then to start to think about the pitfalls of state assessment so that you don't let it become something that people find a negative. And so that will be important. And then after going through a series of activities this week, getting you to then think about what is the role of state and district and school and classroom level in response to standardized testing. And so how does that look in your own setting? And, if it doesn't have a role, then why not? And is that good or bad, or are you indifferent about it? So you know that this is one of the last videos that I typically make when I'm going through this week, or sometimes I'll pull videos I've created before, but it's the last one I create after organizing it all. And so I just want to walk you through this week's organization. Your checklist is over here, which is high detail, and then some broader checklist right here, depending on your own learning style. Questions from last week. I will film this once the exit tickets are complete. This is just a placeholder. And then the introductory video you're watching now, this is just a placeholder from last week, but you have your PowerPoint slides I suggest downloading these and taking notes on them, especially if you're somebody who, rated yourself a 1 or a 2 on that pre-assessment with the state data. And you'll notice in those videos that I've allocated a good amount of time so you can kind of stop, pause, replay as needed without getting behind. But before I go into the rest of this week, what I wanted to do was just switch gears a little bit to looking at your assessment interpretation project, which is due the start of week 4. And so what you're going to do is basically you're going to take a school-wide set of data and analyze it, interpret it, and make recommendations to your colleagues and your school leadership, and you being the role of an academic coach, and so we're a school leader. So you're going to want to start with a school-wide data set in ELA. I've put some other up there depending on what your school has access to or what you have access to. As I've learned from some of you, your schools don't like you to have access to this data, which I find interesting. That's all I'll say about that. But this is for this project, you might find it easier to just go with the sample sets provided, so that you can, work with a partner or up to 3 on the data. There are several activities in parts 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 that is going to allow you to use those sample data sets. So if you've done the work in those practice times during the class content, you're going to have done some of the work for your assessment. So in my advice to you would be use the sample set. However, if you feel strongly that you do want to use your own, please by all means do so. And then maybe we should work, you can just let me know and use that data for your classroom activity time, just so that you're not doing the same thing twice. You'll just have to give me a copy of that data set, and probably deleting the last names and student IDs column would be enough to make it confidential, and protect the names of the students in the data set. So you're going to interpret the data, look at patterns. You're going to want to look at the different reporting categories and the overall scores, and even look at the state averages, which is one of the activities during class time. And how is the data set perform in relation to the state. So you're going to want to think about the things that we've done already, A through E. And then you're going to want to think about an action plan, instructional strategies, a plan for assessment, all the way down to celebrating. The product is going to be a presentation. You can use PowerPoint, Prezi, any type of multimedia, iMovie, whatever you're comfortable with. And so keep in mind when you're creating a visual presentation to your peers that you're going to, less is more. So you're going to want to make sure that it's clear, but yet not filled with text on a slide or on a visual. And you might want to use graphs that you've created from your data set. And then the last section would be if you had to give this presentation to a school board of directors, typically who are not educators, not always, but in many cases, how would you adapt this to make it understandable to that audience? It's different than working with educators. So that number 5 can be a final slide with a lot of text. That's where it would be appropriate if you're using PowerPoint, or if you want to just write up a quick, a brief response in a Word doc and submit it in that assignment folder, that's fine too. And you can see the expectations for the percentage for each part of the activity. And then there's a rubric here that you can kind of follow along with. So, and then when you come back to class here on the weekly activity, you'll see there's kind of a quick activity on Padlet where you answer this question. And here's the link to the Padlet for you to post. And then you're going to get right into looking at the test design. of the state test. There's parts 1 and part 2, just to break it up for you. If you're somebody who feels like you understand the test design, you might be able to go through this more quickly. And if you're somebody who feels like, hey, I need a little bit more time, print the PowerPoint, play, pause, and back and forth until you feel comfortable. After looking at the test design, you're going to download a descriptor, but it's going to be based on what you sign up for in this Google Doc. So you're going to pick a grade, a subject, and you are going to read. So if you sign up for grade 3, you're going to want to put your name in here. You're going to read the performance descriptors for grade 3 ELA Advanced, Proficient, Basic, and then you're going to paraphrase, right, the main parts in here. And some people have even, when there were keywords that made it different, they bolded those words for everyone else to see, and then you'll be able to have kind of a group summary of those performance levels. Part 2, you're going to see this one. Actually, this should say 200 minutes. I have to edit that. And you're going to be able to spend a good amount of time looking at Keystone or PSSA data. So you're going to want to pick PSSA or Keystone and then download the appropriate document. So PSSA memo with a PSSA grades 3 through 5, if that's the data set you're going to work with, or is it Keystone and memo and the Keystone data. So you'll get an overview of what those reports look like in this section. And then when you're done, there is an activity here. And again, this part, you can work in groups of 2 or 3. You just want to remember to make sure you label, write your name on there, the documents when you turn them in, so that I know that you've worked in groups. Then you're going to go ahead and there's an overview on how to complete that activity. And then part 3, 4, and 5 are all about DataWise. And here, once you view this part, you're going to go ahead and develop a kind of a brief action plan, kind of a hypothesis based on that data set from part 2. And that way, again, it's getting you ready for your assignment that I just went over previously. Part 4 is really just a video. It says 60 minutes, but there's really 45 minutes of kind of unassigned time for you to work on your interpretation project. Part 5, kind of bringing it some closure. And so there's a short video here with an opportunity for you to reflect on Chapter 8. And then this last one kind of puts a bow on the package of state testing with just a look at test-centric practices. And that's going to lead you right into your weekly reading, reflection, or discussion. And so you'll complete a response to that question. And then there's an exit ticket here for you to complete, and that will bring closure to week 3. Like I said before, there is more to week 3. Week 4 and week 5 will have less content to it. And you'll, as we wind down the 5-week course, then you won't have as much to do and you'll be ready to take off for the rest of the summer. I also, just as I put in here a reference to the ladder of inference that was mentioned in Chapter 3. So I put a link in here for you if you are interested in looking at that. If you need time for your assessment interpretation project, in other words, you need an extension, just let me know. I do not mind being flexible on that. It's Father's Day on that day, so if you want to move it to Monday or Tuesday, just let me know so I'm not worried about you getting behind or not getting the project done. Have a great week. Please email, reach out via phone if you have any questions, or if you want to set up a time we can meet on Adobe Connect and actually talk face-to-face, that's fine too. Have a great week.